Greetings. I am Kim McDowell-Will, and I will be presenting the JBA Library Collection Development Proposal. One of the biggest issues that is facing the JBA Library is that it currently has no collection development policy. According to experts, a collection development policy that places a larger emphasis on strategic direction will more effectively establish collection priorities that match future community trends. This is to emphasize the fact that a collection development policy will not only help with minimizing the current physical collection, but for future guidelines for increasing the collection in a way that better fits the community needs. Collection development policy. What purpose does a collection policy serve? According to experts, using the library's mission, vision, and values, these policies provide a framework for the growth, selection, and scope of materials in the library collects. In order to establish a collection development policy, all of these, the mission statements, the vision that the library has, the values that it hopes to continue to obtain and bring forward, all of these things need to be taken into consideration when creating a collection development policy. And as previously said, it's setting the future guidelines and then also applying them. This is part of integral part to revamping the collection, to minimizing the physical collection and making future adjustments that's going to help the community at large at Joint Base Andrews. One of the biggest issues and problems facing the physical collection at Andrews Library is the fact that the children's collection still needs to be weeded. I was employed there for 3 years. We did 2 weedings, and still there was a lot of books left on the shelves that should have been removed. However, due to policies and procedures not being fully followed, and having a different idea and framework about what the collection should have has caused issues to basically create a situation where it's bloated. It's one thing I learned doing my degree is that every library is like a garden, and when there's so many weeds, they need to be pulled, and that's part of this process to making a more effective collection. What I'm proposing is that both in the children's and juvenile sections, that all nonfiction be removed if it's 4 years old or 2 years it has not been checked out. This follows within the guidelines provided by Libraries Headquarters, Air Force Libraries Headquarters. All fiction should be removed if it's not been checked out in 2 years. That includes an entire set of fiction. So say, for instance, you had a whole fantasy series and 3 out of those 5 books have not been checked out for 2 years. It's better if you're trying to downsize the library to just remove that whole set and not try to keep the set together. And of course, worn or damaged books should be removed. My other big emphasis in order to downsize the library is a relocation of the collection within the library. I will cover that later. The teen and young adult collection needs weeding, it needs refocusing, and it as well needs relocation. What I'm proposing is that the nonfiction section of the teen and young adult area should be completely eliminated. Every time we came to having to weed the collection, this was a serious issue. These books are never checked out. Most young adults, when they tend to do schoolwork, they're always using Google, they're using online resources, and if you're trying to change the emphasis of a library to a digital collection, it's best to start getting rid of whole areas of the collection that aren't used and turning that money in the direction towards either the digital collection or to beef out other areas that are checked out. The teen area tends to get books. Teens tend to never check them out. It's due to a lot of issues where you don't have a librarian in charge who's actually doing what's an integral part to that, which is collection management. You have individual staff picking what they think is best for the collection. Since there is no collection development policy, they have nothing, they have no sorts of guidelines to say, well, this is specifically what we should do and what we shouldn't do. So it's a bit of a mess because of this. So this goes back to what I was talking at the beginning of my discussion to this presentation, and I'm going to be bringing this through all of the issues that are current. I suggest that you have new books. If they're fiction, they should be based off of like the top 10 top sellers. The graphic novels and manga should be increased, and it should not be weeded. I specifically built this collection. It was incredibly popular before I left working there. However, employees chose to ignore it. They didn't promote it. And one of the biggest things I've learned that you can have the best collection in the world, but if you're not promoting it, no one's going to know it exists, and no one's going to be checking anything out. So this is something that I cover when I talk about the rearrangement and relocation of the library within the library. And this is something that should not be touched. That's to go also for junior fiction and the kids. There is a graphic novel section specifically for them that shouldn't be touched and actually should be increased. And that brings me back to my fourth point, which is the collection is to be relocated. And I will be giving you a layout that is more efficient, that targets the interests in the community and so forth. The biggest changes that are going to be suggested for me is that the adult collection is definitely going to need a huge weeding. And it needs to be reimagined in a way that's going to work better for the community. What I am suggesting, since you're wanting to minimize your collection, go more towards a digital emphasis, that your nonfiction section should go more towards what's called a store book layout, something like Barnes and Noble's. You should run reports. You should look at your most popular genres. That could be maybe history's most popular, parenting, gardening, etc. You should get rid of almost everything in your nonfiction section in the adult section that is not a genre that is popular. Emphasize that genre, those genres. Try to keep it to a maximum of like 10 genres. So maybe history, like I said, gardening, parenting tends to be popular, maybe cooking, and all of these should be considered, but you should also eliminate outdated materials. So all nonfiction should be removed if it's older than 3 years. The only exceptions are your professional section, because those are obviously on a list that's specifically to the Air Force, and your clip materials. All fiction should be removed if it's not checked out within 2 years. This might be incredibly harsh, but if you're hoping to downsize the physical collection, this is going to have to be carried out. My suggestion in popular, like I was saying, genres, you should keep a science fiction section, a fantasy section, some of the other ones that are nonfiction. So you're going to keep genres that are popular fiction genres. It might be like murder mysteries, science fiction, fantasy, and then your most popular genres of your nonfiction, like I mentioned before. But you should try to keep it specifically to 10 shelves, if possible, or 2 massive bookshelves. One for your nonfiction, one for your fiction, and then my other suggestion is for your new books, you 100% want to try to stay within like the top 10 of the New York Times bestsellers, or what you know is popular within your community. And I will also be talking about the collection to be relocated and reimagined for the adult section as well. One of the things that I think is vital to your digital resources being emphasized is you should eliminate the audio CD collection completely. Most of all of those audiobooks can be found online through the Air Force Library Headquarters resources. Last time I was there, they had Hoopla, they had tons of digital resources that were available for people to stream any audiobook from their phone. So that would be that would save the library money to put money towards things like CLEP books that are more important if the focus is more focused on active duty military members, or if you're going more to a digital collection, to enhance your digital collection because you'll need subscription and there will be costs. I would 100% eliminate your magazines. Your magazine section is a huge mess, in my opinion. Like, I was there, it was randomly based off of certain things. The issues with the magazines is that it's contracts, so you're going to have to work with finance to end the contracts. Most of these magazines are online. They're accessible through some of Air Force Library Headquarters online resources. So it's just a matter of training your staff so that they can train your patrons on how to use these sources online. If your emphasis is changing away from retirees and towards active duty military members and their families, these are the two things that you should immediately eliminate to put a message out there that you're going towards a digital collection. This will also make it easier for your cataloger. This will make it easier on everyone working there if they have less physical things and it's more streamlined, making it easier for checking in and checking out. And also not worrying about CDs being, destroyed or scratched, because sometimes it's very expensive to replace those. Now that I've spoken about what is needed in order to downsize and minimize the collection, I'm going to be talking about how the library layout plays a vital role in downsizing and reusing that space in a more productive way. Going to digital and minimizing your collection, you're following those guidelines that I set forward. I think it could possibly shrink your physical collection by 50%. Also, it's by minimizing, creating a actual collection development policy, it will force the re-examination of the communities, especially with the COVID-19. I looked in and saw that online that the library is currently closed. You are only doing curbside. So this is a perfect opportunity, because it will not be curbside forever. This is a perfect opportunity to go forward with these new ideas and get them established and taken care of before you reopen. The main point about relocation of items and space and sections is it allows for efficient use of library space. I will cover that in a second. And the other thing about minimizing and going digital, it eliminates outdated materials. Now, this might feel a bit shocking looking at this proposal. However, I will explain. The old kids' room will become a quiet study room specifically for airmen. With this new layout, one of the major issues while I was working at the library with the kids' room being in the back was a lot of parents would leave their children unsupervised. With COVID, social distancing, issues with staff, this will help cut down a lot of those problems. The other things is that children, especially under the age of 4, would tend to have potty accidents and pee on the floor. And with the COVID restrictions, this accounts for social distancing. You only have 3 bookshelves, so you finally have the children's section broken up from the juvenile section, which is really important. So here you have social distancing of where to sit. If you decide to have in-person story time, you have nothing in the center of the room so that children could be better spread out. You could have your person that's giving the talks about the books over here in the corner. Children have more room. The other thing I 100% think no toys in the children's room, because this becomes an issue. It's also good to have the kids' room over here because, like I said, there's a changing table in here, so you have less likely to have accidents. The other thing is that the staff will have more control of what's going on. We've had brand new books destroyed because parents have left children unsupervised. By being closer to the circulation desk, an employee can keep an eye on what's going on over here. Also, it will help keep it to the fact that we can control the volume because the volume was getting out of control because we were too far to go back there. I've moved some things around. For instance, the board games are going to be more visible, so they're between the kids' room and the juvenile section, and they're near the circulation desk, so people are more aware that this is available for checkout. The kids' movies would be over in the juvenile section. With this break up with the juvenile section, I'll be talking about the computer room. There would be 2 PCs here for children or teenagers to do schoolwork. So they wouldn't be maybe too loud or whatever to what was going on in the quiet study area. There'd be 2 tables so that if you start doing in-person activities, from now on, instead of it being in the main part of the library, you can actually have the kids' activities over here, which is still kind of like the children's room. But breaking up these 2 collections is vital, so that this becomes the small little kid area. This now becomes like an actual juvenile section for like kids that are not under the age of 5. They're more like between 8 and maybe 12. They want a place to just sit and read their book and be close to their book, or they want to be near a computer. But the idea is also by having the kids' movies over here, it makes it easier for parents to find what they need. Here, by putting the teen section over here, it just kind of creates a space that's separate, but still connected all across the way for all age groups. I suggest putting the graphic novels here because a lot of people don't know they exist because they tend to get hidden in the corners. If we're breaking the collection down correctly, what will happen is these will be like new kids books, nonfiction, fiction. New juvenile books, fiction, nonfiction. New teen books, fiction, and possibly more fiction if we need the space, and possibly some juvenile books on this side, hopefully not. And the graphic novels will be more emphasized. I also suggest moving the video games over here. I would have your PS4 games here, and then I would have your Xbox games over here, and your graphic novels in between. And now all of a sudden you've created a space where people will automatically think, well, this would be the place I would look for my video games. This would be the place I'd look for board games. And this creates, with this more open layout and really cutting the physical collection in half, you suddenly have a much bigger open space where staff can do a better job of actually keeping an eye on what's taking place across the library. Here, these would just be cataloging PCs. We would get rid of the Air Force computers here because I'm going to be talking about that in a second. I suggest, since the video games have been moved, CLEP books tend to be one of the most popular things that active duty military members come in, so I suggest putting the study guides actually here so they don't have to go far if they don't want to. I would keep the movies here, maybe have some furniture here. Tables still. Here you would have new books, you would have genre, so this would be like your adult nonfiction genre, this would be your fiction genre, and then you would still have additional tables out here for possible activities for adults, like the game club or something else, or an extra spill out area for when you don't have enough room for all the kids' activities up here. So that is the main library being repurposed and refocused so it's easier for families to get what they need and leave instead of having to hunt through stacks and stacks of books without staff members being able to help them. Because that was one of the biggest issues with the kids in juvenile fiction section. They would be way over here at the opposite side of the library and have to walk all the way here to go to the circulation desk in order to ask for help to find things, because it's very confusing with the Dewey system. That's the reason why I'm suggesting by downsizing the physical library and turning it in more of a actual bookstore like Barnes & Noble's, you have what's called the bookstore model where you emphasize books by genre. You can still keep Dewey, but then you can do it by genre, so it's easier for families and individuals to find what they're looking for. This is the new reimagined library. Now, this is what I'm suggest doing. I think you could have an all-purpose, all-in-one printer here, but what I'm suggesting is turning the computer room into an actual classroom, which is usually was asked a lot by individuals hoping to teach, like, a class on Microsoft Word for their airmen and so forth. So my idea is that these will all be computer desks on the Air Force network, so you can have a tech refresh. If you have a current classroom that isn't really being used, you can literally just move everything over here. I suggest a whiteboard, an Air Force printer, and all of these computers to be on the Air Force network. When it's not being used for a classroom setting, because I am going to suggest that if you're going to be going to digital, you're going to need to employ someone that can teach classes to airmen and how to access CLEP materials online, how to access other things for their family online. So you will need like a classroom setting to do this. My suggestion is now that the children's room has been moved to the front of the library because it serves so many purposes in the front of the library due to supervision issues, ease on staff members to help, easily helps a lot of families when they need all the help, is that you will need a study room. That is one thing that I think is absolutely mandatory. If your emphasis is more on active duty military members and career focused and their families, this gives them an area to be separate, to study somewhere quiet and not be interrupted. So your reference section will be seriously downsized, but it will go in here. Then you'll have your professional section. You have plenty of room because those, I'm pretty sure that these bookcases can't be moved. So you're going to have to like leave them there anyways. So that's a perfect opportunity to have a professional. I do suggest that you do keep some computers on normal Wi-Fi because since it is Joint Base Andrews, there are like National Guard that come to use to do training, and they cannot access their training on an Air Force network. So I would suggest having maybe four computers tops, but they should all be passworded. And the emphasis shouldn't be for retirees to come in and check their email or so forth. That was one of our biggest issues, is that retirees would tie up our help because they didn't know how to do simple tasks like check their email. This is not what the computer should be for. They should be for airmen, and they should be used for families, for schoolwork and studying and help. The library's emphasis should not be on checking email, doing little tiny personal tasks. That needs to change. And this study room should have it should be very clear that it's a quiet study room. It's not for children. It's only for adults. You're gonna take all of your study tables that you have, those tables that are back to back with the wood between them, and they're gonna go in this room. And this room's going to be a complete quiet study room. And it'll be right next to where the all-in-one printer is. They won't have to worry about children running in and out and screaming, or if there's children activities going on somewhere else. And staff members don't have to worry, since the children's room's not back here anymore. They can trust that adults could be adults, go in here and the door can be shut because it's going to be a quiet room. So that's actually also a fire safety code, that the door is actually supposed to remain shut, both of the doors. But we've kind of, anyways, I digress. So these are all of my suggestions. I hope it was helpful. My biggest thing to emphasize is that unless you have a collection development policy going forward, you will encounter the same issues and problems. I hope this was very helpful, Donna. If you have any questions or if you want to go over anything, please let me know and I'll be happy to help. Talk to you later.